today on board my boat, and I have an absolutely enormous box of bits and a plan. And some of you might have guessed the plan already. If you haven't, this is what it is. You see, the thing is, I have to move my boat on every 2 weeks, and in that I have to find time to get fresh water. And you do that by going and finding a tap and filling up, and it takes ages, and there aren't that very many taps. And it's all a bit of a palaver. Then you've got to find somewhere to wind and go back and find somewhere to moor, and it just generally takes hours and hours and hours. And that seems a bit silly, given that, my boat is floating in an enormous trough of water. So I've got infinite water. The trouble is, it looks like this. So the question is, can I adequately filter water such that I can use it in my tank for general everyday stuff? Now, I've been helped in this quest by the excellent John from directwaterfilters.co.uk, who has given me a lot of help and also has let me purchase something relatively brand new on the market, which is basically only just invented. So this is the process by which we are going to set up a set of water filters and see if we can produce sensible water. Now, just before I start, let me make it clear. John has been more than clear that the setup I have got is not officially approved as drinking water. Okay, so let me say that again. It's not approved as drinking water. This is only for washing and washing clothes and so on. However, that said, if I do choose to drink it and I end up with the runs, it's entirely my own fault. So we're going to do a few experiments, and we're going to start with this thing, which is a large groundwater pump, and I'm going to set that up and see if I can get that to work as the start of a 10. So let's do that now. Right, so this is the pump, and the first thing we notice is that it has on it a European plug, which is not what we want, and also it doesn't have an RCD on it. So I'm going to solve two problems at once by chopping off the end of the plug, assuming I can get through it, like that, and installing an RCD plug. So let's crack on with that. The next thing we need to think about, now that we have it with the correct sort of plug and a safe one on it, is how water is going to get in and out of this thing. This is the outlet, this is the inlet, and they are 1-inch screw fittings, but I want to connect a hose. So I've got a couple of these, which, with a bit of luck, they've got a rubber seal in them, so they should seal up pretty nicely, like so. And also, let's find the other one. Here it is, like so. Okay, now the next part is quite interesting, because this is John from Direct Water Filters innovation, and this thing goes on the end of the hose and it drops into the water, and before it even gets to the pump, it filters out to a level of 20 microns. That's 20 thousandths of a millimetre. He more or less invented this. This is just a cheap air filter from I think it's from a hot tub, and incredibly straightforward and easy to replace. He had these 3D printed, so this goes on here like this. This bit, which is weighted, so it will sink in the water, goes in like this, and the idea should be that the water comes in through these bits and not around the sides. As to be said, this is something of a guinea pig idea, so we don't know if it will work yet, but it's got to be worth a try, right? So let's give that a go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a length of hose, and I'm going to fit it to that, put it into the in pot of the pump, get another length of hose for the output, and then we can take it outside, switch it on and see if it does in fact pump water. So let's do that. Right, so I've plugged it in. It's time to see if it works. Until such time as I get a proper one-way valve on this hose, I'm going to have to prime it every time. So let's just prime it by filling it up with water. How are we getting on? That should be about it. Okay. And then I can attach this on the top. As I say, I'll get a proper one-way valve in due course. And let's see if we can persuade that to work. And would you look at that? Excellent. Right, good. So now we have the beginnings of a system. Hold on a minute. Now we have the beginnings of a system. It is time to start installing it in the box. So let's get on with that. Right, so the next part of the project is to get the filter housings, which you can see there, 5 of them, and the pump installed into the box such that they're screwed to the sides, and then I can be clearer about what sort of filters I'm using and what I'm hoping to get out of it. So let's crack on with that bit. Okay, here we are. We have got our filters mounted. One quite important thing to note if you're thinking about doing it yourself is to make sure that you have room to get the spanner on, and also room to get the filter off. So you need to mount it high enough so you can withdraw your filter housing. Okay, let's get the pump installed. And here we are. The pump is installed. The filters, or the filter housings, are installed, and as you can see, I've drilled holes for the inlets and outlets. They're the right size for hose fittings, and I've drilled a hole at the bottom for drainage. So what's going to happen is the water's going to come in here, it's going to be pumped out of here, it's going to go through these 2 filters, it's going to go around through these 3 filters and out of that hole there. So my next job is to plumb this all together, and then I can get on with explaining to you precisely what all the filters are for, and then we will get on and test it. That's going to happen tomorrow for me, but for you it's going to happen in about 10 seconds time. See you in a bit. Good morning, humans. Well, for you it's about 15 seconds later, but for me it's the following day. And so now the time is right to go ahead and connect all these things together with the appropriate lengths of pipe. So that is precisely what I'm going to do. Let's crack on. Here we are, ready for its test. I still don't have a check valve, so that stops the water draining out of the pump when it's not in use. So I'm going to have to prime the system manually. Now the other thing to say is that this is genuinely the first time I have tried this, so it may or may not work. And if it doesn't work, and almost certainly because of having to manually prime, then I will include this video still, and we will see what has gone memories skyward in the intervening time. Nevertheless, what I'm trying to do is to check to see if the water flows all the way through these filter housings and out of the end. So let's see. We're also going to check for egregious leaks. Well, it's filling up, so that's good. We've got a leak here, which I'll need to look at. Got a leak there I will need to look at. However, we have got water coming out of the filter system, which is excellent. So, 1, 2 leaks to look at. I think those are the only leaks. Yes, they are. Excellent. Right, I'll deal with the leaks and then we'll install the filters. Right, having gone through all that palaver to build a box with filter housings, I guess the final part of the question is, why have I done this? And the answer is to run it through these filters. So why specifically these filters? Well, because I decided on these in conjunction with and with the advice of John from Direct Water Filters. Now, again, I'm going to say two things. One, he hasn't sponsored me. I paid full price for these. If they are rubbish, I will say so. But secondly, a reasonable question would be, if one of these filters is so amazing, why not just use one filter? And the answer is you probably could, although they do slightly use different things. But these 3 filters here, when we get them, are quite expensive. They're 30 quid a go. And these are between £3 and £5 a go. So it makes sense to remove as much of the scuzz as possible with filters that you can replace fairly often, such that these don't get clogged up. So, starting at the left and going to the right, let's go through the filters. So actually the first filter, you've already seen, is on the end of the hose. That takes out anything larger than 20 microns, which is stuff that if you held it up in a glass of water you could clearly see. This looks like string. It is string. It is a string filter. This removes anything down to about 5 microns. So by the time it goes through this, you would be able to, the water might still be cloudy, but you might not be able to see so many individual parts with the naked eye. This takes things down to 1 micron. By this point, it's starting to look not cloudy, although it still has plenty of dissolved nasties in it. So then we get to our 3 expensive ones. First on the list is a mix block. So this has carbon in it, and what this does is it removes chlorine, it removes sort of organophosphates, pesticides, oil, phenols. Basically, it's the phrase is it improves the organoleptic properties. In other words, it removes organic compounds. This one is the Killer app. This is an Aragon filter, and this all by itself should make the water, if not officially drinkable, at least relatively unlikely to kill you. So this is an ion exchange cartridge, so it removes nasty stuff that's dissolved in the water, and both of these cartridges are relatively fine mesh. They will also remove bacteria, viruses and cysts. And then just to make sure, we've got a cartridge specifically designed to remove bacteria, viruses and cysts, and also going to do some removal of VOCs and other heavy metals and fluorides and other things, just in case this cartridge or this cartridge missed them. So they're kind of 3 cartridges which kind of do the same thing and kind of have a big overlap in what they do, but that's good, because any that they miss, the next cartridge will pick up. Now again, I'm going to say this because John has been very, very clear. The water that comes out of this filter system, he does not say is going to be drinkable. If I choose to drink it, it is my own silly fault. Okay, what this is designed to be is to be showerable and to wash your clothes and so on, I could install, I may yet install, a reverse osmosis system to provide actual drinking water on board the boat. The other thing to say is, of course, I'm tipping this water into a tank which has got, you know, old water that's been in the sunshine for ages. And, you know, my tank is probably not entirely, well, it's definitely not bacteria free. But then I've been drinking water from that tank, you know, for a long time, and I appear not to have died yet. So, well, we'll see. We'll see. If I drink the water, it will be at my own risk. Okay, let's get these filters. Well, I'll get these filters installed off camera because it's a horrible, tricky task, and then we will do a test. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is genuinely the first time I have run it through the filters, so if it doesn't work, you will have seen it here first. Let's have a look and see. The first one's filling up all right. Second one's filling up all right. Third one's filling up all right. Fourth one is filling up more or less, guessing there. And we have water. Now, obviously, we're going to have to run some water through, and I need to check that it doesn't flow more than 10 litres per minute, which I don't think it will. And equally, obviously, it would be the act of an idiot to immediately take some of this water and put it into a glass and drink it. That would be completely silly. So, just while it's flowing through, let's have a look. Looks quite uncanally, doesn't it? And it tastes like actual water. Now, unfortunately, I can't do the flow test on camera because I need to use my phone to time how long it takes to fill up a litre or so. So I will do that, and then I'll come back to you, and then we will use it to fill my tank. See you in a minute. Right, we are pretty much there, I think. I've made a couple of changes. Because the flow rate was a bit high, I have put in a partially closed stop valve. I've also moved the motor slightly further back so I can put in this check valve, which doesn't allow water to flow backwards, therefore keeps it primed. And I've put these things on the outside so I don't have to sort of trail the hoses back into the box. So I guess all I need to do now is to run it and see what happens. I've got the hose going down into my water tank. I know what the level of my water is. So let's run it for 10 minutes and see what happens. And here we go. Right, so I'm going to come back in 10 minutes and see how much higher the level of the water is. Excellent. Okay, it's the moment of truth. The water level was just about there, just above the second notch. It has been running for 10 minutes. And the water level now is just below the third notch. That's excellent. So that means that in around and about sort of 40 minutes, I could fill my tank totally full to empty to full rather. Although what I will say is this, John from Direct Water Filters did tell me that this is not an ideal system if you are not a continuous cruiser, because it kind of needs to be run 2 or 3 times a week just to keep the bacteria levels sensible and all the rest of it. So I will be using this 2 or 3 times a week for 10 minutes at a time just to fill up my tank. The other thing is, I'm going to say again, because I think it's very important, that John from Direct Water Filters has not said that this water will be potable. What I'm in fact going to do is I'm not going to drink it right now. I am going to have the water tested after a week or so and see what it contains. But nevertheless, here we are, one complete system. I will put a link to Direct Water Filters in the description of this video. And if you are a boater, I suggest you go and check it out. You can get systems like this. You can get them off the shelf. They cost between £2,000 and £3,000. This whole system cost me something under £500. And if you're not of a practical bent, I think John is prepared to build things like this for you, but not for the cost price, obviously. I think they tend to come out sort of, you know, between £1 and £2. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you like these sorts of videos, please do like and subscribe, and I shall keep you updated as to how well it continues to work. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.